and I wouldn't say I was very visible at all. I think people probably know who I am, and certainly within my sub team, people know who I am. But I didn't take, so I had an opportunity as a team lead for about a team of about 70 in my sub team.
Right.
And I didn't take the opportunity when I had that to do something more with it and actually go out to the wider team and get to know people and say, look, it's me, because part of me just assumes they're not going to be interested because it's me. Like, why am I so interesting that they want to give up their time? And I'm just not that important.
Right.
You know, it just feels really presumptuous.
Yes. What, me? Little me? No.
Well, you know.
Yes, I can understand that. But that was an ideal opportunity to build some relationships.
It was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And what is the fear that's holding you back?
Probably that I am. I've got a few chips on my shoulder, I think, but I think probably that I'm not good enough, and I think my mindset since I joined the company, which was 8 years ago, so I've been hanging on to this for some time, was that I don't think I'm mentally fit with the business. They're all tryhards. They're probably all doing the right thing, and I'm the outsider, if I'm honest.
Right. Okay. So not fitting in is an issue, is it?
Well, I wouldn't. So I think if you looked at me, you'd think I fitted in. Yeah. I just think they all talk big game and they don't particularly deliver, especially as much as they talk about it.
Yeah, no.
And it's a lot of show and everyone's, you know, a lot of patting people on the back and aren't we all great? And it all feels very disingenuous. And, you know, for me, it comes down to like, prove your worth. I'll work with you if you're good. You know.
Yes. And that's a very common experience, which is where you see people that talk a really good job all the time and it switches you off completely talking about it because you don't want to become like them. And sort of getting somewhere in between the two is important. But we probably all know somebody who's less competent than us and has been promoted of others because they are visible and they can talk a good talk. So yeah, to avoid that, the frustration of that, being visible is one way of doing it. Okay, so anybody else want to have any thoughts around their visibility and how comfortable they are?
I haven't always been comfortable with being very visible. I'm quite visible in my organization, but I guess I could be more visible within the industry or the business community I work in. I haven't felt comfortable being visible because I guess I've been a bit worried about getting overwhelmed with, I'm not sure what exactly, but that sort of has held me back. I like to have some space. So I think that's one of the reasons why I've not worked hard enough on that, actually.
Okay. So when you see...
If that makes...
Yeah, it does, yeah. When you see it as a priority, Yvonne, it might change. You might then...
Sorry?
If you see it as a priority, rather than something that you could do or you should do, if you put it as a priority in your mind that this is something I really want to do, because it's not just about career progression, as I said, it's also about getting more out of your role and feeling more fulfilled and satisfied.
Yes.
Right, so let's move on now to talk a bit about the opportunities that you have for being visible, which there are quite a number of them. So to start with, let's talk about the ones you have internally within your organisation, the things that you could possibly do. So one of the most obvious is to volunteer for more responsibility. And when you do that, you obviously have to be careful that you're not taking on a huge amount of workload above what you already have, because you won't be able to cope with that. And the other thing to remember is that this is about showcasing some of your skills. So there's no point in volunteering for the organising the Christmas do or doing some admin that nobody else wants to do, because that isn't going to get you visible to the right people, and it isn't going to showcase any of your skills that people haven't necessarily seen. So if you are going to volunteer for some extra responsibility, make sure that it's something that gets the spotlight on you or gets you showcased in a way that is beneficial. So when we talked about assertiveness yesterday, we talked about respecting the other person's needs and respecting your needs. In this, it's the same thing. You're respecting the company's need, that they need somebody to help out with something else, but you're also respecting your needs in terms of, is that right for me? Is the fit right? Yeah. So just be aware of that before you start volunteering for everything that you possibly could. Okay, another one is to get involved in new projects. Now, new projects might not specifically be in your department. They might be cross-department. They might be a project to one side, a new innovative or creative project. But they're a great way of you demonstrating some skills around innovation and creativity that maybe you haven't got the opportunity to do in your current role. So for that, we'd be talking about you sort of putting your hand up or going through your manager or whatever to signal that you're looking to take part in this. Going for it to take part in new projects has some risks because not all of them work out. But being seen as somebody who's going to take a risk and try something new is a good thing if it doesn't necessarily work out. And if it does work out and adds high value to the company, then absolutely you've got some brilliant visibility out of that. Okay, so something else that's probably a little bit easier to do is to ask to represent your boss or the department in something. So it could be in a forum, a meeting, a conference, something that's cross-functional across the business. It could be when your boss is, you know, away on holiday or out doing something else that you say, you know, very happy to stand in for you. Again, it's going to take a bit of confidence and a bit of stepping out of your comfort zone into a new environment. But it's a great way of getting yourself seen by other people that you wouldn't necessarily come across normally or have any form of relationship in the other way. I think there is, if it is a meeting, a conference situation, again, you're going to want to speak up like we talked about on Tuesday. But remember that speaking up doesn't have to be you giving a wow. You could set yourself a small intention about what you would do in that situation so that you get the opportunity to be seen, but now you don't have the pressure of, you know, I must behave like my boss would behave here. Yeah. So representing your boss and department's a good one. Now, presentations, the one we all love to hate. Presentations are an absolutely brilliant way of getting yourself some visibility, having the spotlight put on you. So they could be very small presentations to your team. They could be larger auditorium type presentations. Now, some people are quite comfortable presenting, in which case this is a really good way of getting a demonstration of your knowledge and getting your name and face in front of people. So if it's something you love doing, then absolutely get yourself known out there, offer to do presentations, offer to help out on presentations. Or sometimes people have panels that you can join, so you're part of other people talking on a panel. And having the opportunity to present to the board is very important. And although that can be intimidating as well, it's another new experience for getting new visibility. And generally when you present, it's quite comfortable because you're talking about what you already know, rather than being asked to speak up on the spot. If you hate presenting, then my suggestion would be that you start very small in a safe environment, where there's somebody who can give you constructive criticism, but you also feel it's not a disaster if I'm not perfect here. Yeah. The next one internally, dry mouth, is something that I really believe is important and is happening less so these days, is to have a mentor or a sponsor. Now, the two things are very different. A mentor tends to be somebody who is really experienced in your field, somebody who you feel comfortable with, you have a trust built with them, and they're a good sounding board. They're somebody that you feel comfortable to share the difficulties of your work with, or somebody whose advice you value. So that role is really important because it gives you somebody to turn to when things are difficult. They're generally, being a mentor, they're generally going to give you advice rather than coaching, which is what somebody like I would do. But they can generally be quite empathetic, which is nice to have somebody like that at work. For a mentor, your company may have a structure in place to find you a mentor. If they don't, then I would certainly approach somebody, somebody that you feel you've got some trust with and that you really respect, to ask them to be your mentor. But I wouldn't go and say, will you be my mentor, please? It's a bit like, will you be my girlfriend or friend, please? What I would do is have a coffee with somebody and maybe say, you know, I've really valued your input here and I really respect what the ideas you've given me. It'd be helpful for me if we could make this a regular coffee, so I can run things by you, a bit like being a mentor, and see where that goes, rather than putting them on the spot. Will you be my mentor, please? That's a kind of softer way in. So if you've got one of those, absolutely use that to help and support you, and be a mentor to other people. You know, the higher you've gone up the career ladder, I'm sure you would have appreciated a lift by from other people when you were further down. So, you know, being a mentor for other people keeps you in the loop of what's going on in the company and develops your skills as well. In contrast, a sponsor tends to be somebody who's quite senior to you. And the point of a sponsor is that they will advocate for you in a meeting. So they will give you the opportunity to have your voice heard when you're not actually in the room. So a sponsor tends to be somebody who's worked with you, who believes in you, and is willing to take a risk on you. So if there's a discussion in a meeting or at a board level or something about who should run a project or who should take the next step up, who's ready to be promoted, that person would be an advocate for you. So they would talk about what you've done well and why they believed you'd be good for that. Now, a sponsor in general isn't something you can ask for. It's something that they choose. And the best way to get somebody to be a sponsor for you is to build up that relationship of trust and know. So finding somebody that you feel you trust, somebody who you can work with and demonstrate your abilities to, so that they then do advocate for you in other areas. Hey. So moving on, I told you there's quite a few of these. The next one is something that I read about from Elena Budzik, who is CEO of a large networking firm. And she was saying that about treating your department or your area of the business as your own business. And what she meant by that is, if you looked at your business as being, you know, something that belongs to you, you're more likely to be creative and to be open to looking for changes that you can do. So you might be looking at, you know, how can I cut costs? How can I innovate something? How can I deal with something that everybody else is ignoring? The type of way you would look at it when it's your own business will be very different to the way you'd look at it if you were an employee there. Let's give you an example of that. client of mine had been involved in putting in a change program into her organization. And she noticed that the change program had gone into at different levels in different areas, depending on the senior leader involved. And she was curious about that and didn't understand why it hadn't gone in as well in other departments as it had in hers. So I was challenging her at the time to think of it as her own business and what she could do if that was the case. And this is what she came up with. She said, well, I would investigate why it's implemented well here and it hasn't everywhere else. So she talked to her boss who said, great idea. She did some research and came up with a few ideas of how things could change. And wow, what a spotlight was on her. What value did she add because of that? And, you know, giving to the senior exec ideas on ways things could change in such a big program that was being launched was fantastic. So just treating it as your own business, thinking, what would I do if it was mine? Can give you a very different perspective on the business itself and on what your department could do. Okay, networking internally, which is what we've just referred to previously, and that's putting the time into relationship building. So it's asking people to go for a coffee, even if you don't work directly with them. It's you know, going up to people at the coffee machine, having a chat. It's making small talk with people at meetings and outside of meetings, taking any opportunity you can, rather than looking at your phone, to actually get in contact with and have some time one-to-one, preferably with people that you don't know within the organisation. And generally, if you want to arrange one-to-one with somebody, you're going to have a reason. So you could say, I'd like to learn more about your area and work out how we from our department can help you. Something like that, because if you give somebody in another area of the business help, not only do they trust you and will advocate for you, but they could also reciprocate the help back another time. So win-win for both sides, really. So I can't say enough how important it is to build a network internally. And you'll see those that rise to the top the quickest, whether they're the most competent or not, will have a very good support network around them. And finally, for internally, self-promotion, which is all about sharing your successes and saying how wonderful you are. And that's the subject for tomorrow, so I won't say anything further on that one for now. So having given you a massive list of potential opportunities to be visible, which of those would you start off using, or which ones do you do now? Who's got any thoughts or questions on that?
I got just a quick question about the sponsor. Like, I was thinking about, I got a mentor and it works very well, and I had it for 5 years, so I'm all right with that. But the sponsor bit, like, it's not something you can ask.
No, it isn't. It's something that you can try to develop by finding somebody that you can, it's often turned out to be somebody that you've worked with on a project maybe, or somebody that you've worked with before who then moves on. So it needs to be somebody that has visibility of your work and the value you add. So they may then go on further in the company.
Yeah, so I got my previous boss, and I think he really likes me, and he's moved up and everything. Yeah. But how can I, like, he will be like, oh, you have your new job, so you're pretty busy. So how can I make sure he kind of thinks of me, or like?
Well, what I would suggest is you just maintain that relationship. Just make sure that at times you're updating him on what's been happening, and, you know, tell him all the things that you've achieved really well and in a very positive mode. So keeping yourself in his mind.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about anybody else? Are there any of those particularly that you think you're going to go and try now?
Well, I have been trying to find a sponsor.
Right, a sponsor or a mentor?
I already have a mentor.
You have a mentor, good. So a sponsor, again, as Marta was saying, it's not something you can really ask, but it is somebody that you can self-promote towards. So
yes,
demonstrating to them the value you're added, so that they, in the meetings where you're not there or with other people, they will talk about how impressed they are with you. Yeah. So it's almost a bit of attaching yourself to somebody without actually asking them, and getting them to see the good things you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to be just one person. You can have several if possible. But usually there are certain people you work better with than others. So that's quite a good guide as to who to go to. So any of the other opportunities that you're going to try other than mentor and sponsor? What about you, Verity, on the spot?
That's fine. I think for me, I'm just listening because it's interesting, because I think for me it's trying to find the space, and I know that you say about that with the time, and I tend to take on too much and then find that I get frustrated because I see other people being very visible and they're able to take on other projects where I'm kind of just weighed down with the amount that I've got to do day to day. So it's interesting when you were saying about that, is about, I think I've got to try and create some space to be visible, and that could just be having time to speak to people instead of kind of flying past them. So I think it's that I'm just about to get an external coach, which my employer has said they're going to help me sort and what have you. But it's always trying to find the time, or making that time so that I can be visible. Because there is one particular person who I work with who's brilliant at it, and so for me it is kind of learning from others and just, like you say, not making excuses, trying to find the time to look at that.
Yes.
So I think that's a big thing for me, in that all of those things I could do, but I think the first thing I need to do is just create a bit of space.
Yes.
And I can have a chat at the water cooler or anything, and I do think a lot of it, just spending the time to actually connect with people. And I've done less of that. I'm working on a huge project at the moment, and it's just completely overwhelming. So I've kind of gone backwards, if you like, in my visibility, I would say. Yeah, I think the first thing I've got to do is create the space.
Yes. And we do have a tendency, I do as well, to get on with them, achieving things, ticking them off, getting through your list of to-dos, and right, I haven't got time to do that now, I'm rushing off, I've got 5 minutes, I can do that, I've got this, I can do that. And everything is about rushing and doing, rather than slowing down and actually using the time for other things.
Yeah, it's interesting actually, because I've looked at that recently, that some people are absolute masters at it, and I think it was Deborah that said we've got a lot of people where I work that are like that as well. Yeah. And you kind of sit back, and I think I've always been like, right, got to deliver, but I've really noticed recently that actually that doesn't necessarily get you noticed.
No. No.
You know, being the person that does everything doesn't actually give you that space to be the person, not necessarily leading it, but being the one that's visible, that's shouting about it and bigging themselves up. And I'm not very good at that either. So.
Yeah, I will look tomorrow for that.
Yeah. So I think it's just having that space and not being the doer of everything, I think.
Yeah, everything it never gets done. So
yeah.
Well, take a bit of time out to focus on some other things as well. Yeah. Okay, and Deborah, anything you're going to try particularly?
I think mine's more about, so I suppose I'm sort of trying to do bits of those already.
Yeah.
But actually it's more around what I get from it and how I position myself within it.
Right.
because you know, taking exactly on the point just being said there about you end up doing things well unless you go in with the right agenda, if you like, in that, okay, I will volunteer and I will do this bit, but I'll do it quite strategically so that I make myself then have contact with the right person while I'm doing it, or that I go and talk to other people about what I'm doing so they know I'm doing it and not just doing it. And that's the bit that I'm not achieving so far.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So that's your kind of your goal, your next challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so.
Good. Okay. So let's now start to think about going externally. So having visibility in the organisation is really important. But if you want to get a job externally at some point, then obviously you're going to need expertise in the external industry. And also it's very good for the organisation. Very good for the organisation you're in if you have external expertise and connections. So it benefits both of you. Interestingly, there's been a lot of research done on networking and getting jobs, and they've discovered that only 25 to 30% of jobs are ever actually advertised, which is quite amazing, I think. So these days, the remaining sort of 70-80% are got through connections or through networking. So somebody knows somebody in the company, or somebody knows somebody who knows somebody, or they've met you at something. And all of these ways are the ways that people are getting jobs via networking rather than by actually advertising as such. So it's a big thing to be aware of, that having your name out there and people recognizing you is an important way of getting jobs in the future, because otherwise you won't find out about them. So the first thing to do is networking as a start, and some industries like law and pharmaceuticals and many others have their own professions and associations, and going to their sorts of opportunities to network is obviously a really important place to start. And knowing as well who are the people in that industry, or that are the key sort of movers and shakers, and can you have any connection with them? You know, do you know who the people are that everybody knows? Can you be connected to them at all? And getting out there and getting your name known. So that's these sort of associations. But then on the other side of that, there are other events. So there are events where specifically networking, not necessarily for any particular industry. Or there are the conferences, development days. You know, all of these sorts of things are great places to get networking, to meet with other people in the same industry or not, to talk to, you know, peers who do similar roles to you, and just to get your name out there and known, so that if somebody says, oh, do you know so-and-so over here, people will know your name, and you get some real visibility. And that's the way you get to find out about other jobs. And even volunteering at those events is quite helpful as well. So that gets you into a position to meet more people if you become part of the organisation. Getting quoted or published in the professional or trade magazine, or something online. So getting your viewpoint out there and seen as either representing your company or just from your personal opinion. So getting something in print or online in print is a really good way of getting visibility, especially if you can get it shared on social media. And you may actually be able to just put out things like what the company has been up to. Something like that can be quite newsworthy as well. Actually serving on an association or a committee. So I talked about professional ones. So actually serving on something like that is really good for getting you in there to know what's happening in the industry, to see the strategic changes, you know, to be in there with the people that know what's going on. That's a really great way. So serving on a committee or something like that is quite a good way of raising visibility. And of course, there's good old social media. Now, most large organisations do have their own social media campaigners and departments. So it may not be appropriate for you particularly to have a big online presence, but certainly there's room for you to be doing some of the posting or reposting of the company stuff and of some of your own if you're allowed to. And that's another really good way of getting your name out there, is to be part of an online community where people support each other and discuss the industry and that sort of thing. So whether you love or hate social media, it is yet another way of networking. And building your own community can be a good support for you, as well as a good way of getting visibility. So back to you. How visible would you say you are outside of the company? And is what do you do about it? Anybody got any thoughts on networking externally?
Only that I find it really difficult.
Right.
And genuinely, those are all sort of things that I'd rather avoid doing all of them if I could.
Very honest of you, Deborah. Well,
no, it's not good, is it? It's not good.
What is it that makes you feel uncomfortable?
I suppose not knowing people. It's a lot of small talk. Are people going to be bored with me quite quickly? Have I got anything of value to say? All those kind of things, really.
Right. Okay. So is it almost the social side of the small talk and the?
Yeah, it just feels. I suppose it's kind of this need for people to be quite genuine, and I sort of.
Right.
It feels terribly artificial, and that people are only there, for sort of self-serving purposes.
Yes.
But I think that's just me being really cynical, which is not helping me.
Yes, and it could be another of these. If I believe that, then I don't have to do it.
Yes. Self-fulfilling.
Yeah. You're sort of inner critic protecting you by saying, "Oh no, don't worry about it. You don't want to be doing that." So, and what would be your intention if you were to? I haven't muted you. I don't know. What would be your intention if you were to go networking? What would you be trying to do?
I think the internal piece. So if I look at my business, most of our work is internal referrals.
Right.
So I think that would be the key bit. And if I've worked with someone, albeit extremely briefly, or they happen to have been on an email chain, and that to me, there's a common point I can latch onto, and that's okay. And I've got no problem with that. If it's a cold, standing there with a glass of wine and you've all been bunged in a room together and you're supposed to talk, make small talk, or you turn up and you have to break into a group of people, that's the bit where I absolutely flounder, and there are those events and they are missed opportunities in my mind, because that's where you get to meet people you don't already know or don't already have a connection with, so probably the more important ones.
Yes. And I think there's a lot of people, particularly on the introverted side, that find that like hell. But what I would say is take the pressure off yourself. It's not your responsibility to be interesting and make wonderful small talk. It is the responsibility of everybody that's in that conversation. And sometimes they don't work. Sometimes it doesn't work. Also, it's not about joining groups and meeting loads of new people. That's no good for actual networking. Networking is at its best when you meet 2 or 3 people and get below the small talk. And if you can focus on just doing that, rather than thinking about to meet as many people as possible and make nice chat with them, but rather than finding 2 or 3 people that you manage to find something in common about and have a little bit more of a discussion than just what's the weather.
Yep.
Yeah. And joining a group, again, if you join a group, you don't have to be the one in charge of the conversation. So if you join a group, you say, do you mind if I join you? And they go on talking, that's great. You can listen and then maybe ask a question at some point. If they stop talking, then you can ask a question if you want, or somebody else will pick it up within the group. Just because you join a group does not mean that you have to make all the effort and have the responsibility. And don't be afraid to walk away from a conversation. You know, to say, well, it's been lovely speaking to you. I'm just going to the toilet, or I need to talk to that person over there, or hopefully I'll see you again later. In a networking scenario, you know, it's that's what people do. They go from one conversation to another. So it's not at all rude. It's almost about putting away some of the manners that we learnt as nice girls, and having our rights as people. It's okay to leave a conversation. It's okay to join a conversation. Yeah. That helpful at all, Deborah?
Yeah, absolutely.
Good, good. Okay, anybody else? How are you going to build up your external visibility? Marta, any thoughts?
So when I go to conference, I can talk to people, but a bit what you said, I'm not really sure they are like real networking now that I think of it. And then the bit I struggle is what she was saying as well, like that I feel sometimes I'm not bringing the most interesting topic on the table.
Vivian! Hold on, I'll just mute Ivana.
Why are you telling me that it's 2,000 naira?
Sorry, Marta, I missed that last bit.
That's okay. That's okay, but it's the pressure when you go and meet someone to make sure, oh, I have that pressure as well, to make sure you're going to make something, you're going to say something interesting or remark they will remember, or that you find a topic that connects you.
Yeah.
So I can start talking, but I just feel a lot the pressure that it's not going anywhere.
Yes, yeah, I know what you mean. But as I say, some conversations won't go anywhere, and that is okay. It doesn't matter. Just at that moment, at that time, it wasn't working for both of you. So that's absolutely fine. Taking the pressure off yourself. You do not need to be remembered. You don't need to be, you know, a comedian or to have the most interesting conversation.
Yeah.
Some people find that a lot easier than others do, but there isn't the pressure there to do it. And if you can get out of your head where that pressure is, telling you, oh, you should be saying this, come on, say something interesting, they're going to be bored. If you can calm that voice down and get out of your head to focus on the other person, and just give yourself an intention that, okay, I'll talk to 2 or 3 people and I'll see what happens. Yeah?
Yeah. Yeah.
And practice is the best thing.
Yeah.
So that you know you'll be comfortable in those sorts of situations. And you can practice that socially, outside of work. You can practice it at the water cooler. You can practice it all over the place until you feel you can trust yourself that something will come up to say, even if it's not mind-blowing.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Ivana, then, do you have any thoughts about networking externally?
I could do more of it, certainly. Sometimes I get really busy and then I feel I'm too tired and I can't be bothered, but I need to do a lot more of it. Right. It's something that I'm comfortable doing. It's just finding the time and making myself do it.
Yes. And what sort of networking would you do? Where would you go?
I would attend, I'd attend events, I'd attend conferences, receptions, you know, seminars, that sort of thing.
Yeah, okay.
Sometimes I get invitations and I just can't be bothered. I think part of also the problem is because I'm a bit of an introvert, so that doesn't. Yeah. Sometimes I can't be bothered, really. Yes. I'd rather just.
Carry on.
No, I'd rather just not go through the motions of the whole networking thing. But I need to. It's about, you know, you have to go fishing to catch the fish, and that's what I need to keep telling myself.
Yeah. So maybe
you're never going to catch the fish if you don't go fishing.
True. True. Maybe it's about having a plan in place that you'd say, okay, once a month I will do this, or twice.
Yes.
though, that you're not feeling so exhausted. Oh, it's another one again. But start with, because as an introvert, you'll want to recharge your batteries on your own, won't you? So
yeah,
make a commitment maybe of how many you're going to attend over a certain period, or which particular type only that you will attend. I'll only attend these, a variety of them. But so giving yourself a strategy or a plan like that is really helpful, and so that you don't get loaded by it. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. I think that would be a good thing to do.
Yeah. Okay, sorry, the dog is just desperate to get in. Do you mind if I just shut the door down? Honestly, my husband's supposed to be in charge of him, but no. And what about you, Verity, to put you on the spot again?
Oh, there we go. Yeah, so I'm on our centre council for our Chartered Institute. So I do quite a bit of external networking, but it's more in my within my industry. Right. And so one of the things I've been kind of considering, how do I kind of break into a wider role rather than just staying in the same thing all the time. Yeah. So I'm quite happy with networking outside. I don't tend to do, what you say about like papers or submitting something for the journal or what have you. I don't tend to do that, and that comes down again to time, and I tend to prioritize other things. Yeah. So yeah, again, I think it's just trying to like you said, I think it was really interesting when you said about making sure you look at it as part of your role.
Yes.
I think I need to start thinking about my working week and thinking, whilst I've probably got 2 hours per night, I also need to put aside time in my working week.
Sorry, I cut you off there. Hello, sorry.
Oh, don't know what happened. Yeah, just to kind of put some time aside for that wider networking.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm not shy in doing that.
Yeah.
I think it's just for me. It's I keep on taking on too much, and then comes back to. So I need to find myself some space. But yeah, and think about how I work more broadly out of my organisation, probably.
Yeah. Yeah, and seeing yourself as maybe a marketing strategy for yourself is a good way of thinking of it. How am I going to market myself? What am I going to commit to make sure that I'm out there and seen as visible?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
It's funny actually, because I used to be, when the organisation was smaller, I was a lot more visible, and just with changing line management and what have you, I've kind of gone the other way. So it's really odd because I know how it can be, but I've kind of gone backwards, if you like. So I need to get back to that being very visible.
Yes. And these things that you keep taking on are benefit to you, would you say? So when I said before about taking on extra responsibility, only do it if it's going to showcase some skills or it's going to put a spotlight on you. What would you say about the things you're taking on at the moment?
So at the moment, I'm working on a significant project, but I which is great, and it raises your profile, but also it's everything that goes with that. It could. I'm always conscious that if you don't keep up with that, then obviously by taking on too much, it could go the other way.
Yes.
So I suppose, it's the work that I'm doing is high level, and we are kind of working with the directors and what have you, but I think it doesn't leave much time for anything else.
Yes.
And I think I've got to start learning to say no.
I like it. Yes, absolutely.
Or being able to push work elsewhere. I'm not very I just seem to keep on taking more on. So it's the right level. I've just got to get rid of everything else.
Yes. So delegating.
Yes.
Yeah. And being assertive, like we talked about yesterday. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Are you a perfectionist at all, Verity?
Yes.
I thought so. Yes, there's a lot of us about, isn't there?
Yeah, it's excruciating actually, but actually it's been interesting because this week I've been thinking about that quite a bit and thinking actually that, you know, this all it will do. I was on a course with work last week and they were saying about what is good enough, and actually you know, it's excruciating when you're trying to get everything absolutely perfect.
Yeah.
I'm having a bit of a think about that. And
yeah, and the 80-20 rule where 80% of the output comes from 20% of the effort.
Yeah.
Do I really need to put in the other 80% of effort? No.
The
answer, yeah. Good. Right. Any other thoughts or questions on being visible, either internally or externally? No? Okay. So we'll leave it there for tonight then. So that is the end of day 4. As always, I will send you the recording. Did you get the recording I sent you by drop mail, Ivana?
I haven't checked. I'll have a look.
I sent it by drop mail because it wouldn't go by email. It was too big.
Okay, I'll have a look.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you, Jo.
So I'll send these recordings tonight. Apologies on both of them. I forgot to start it straight away, so the first few minutes are missing. I'll send out the links tomorrow, where we're going to be talking about self-promotion, and also a catch-up at the end on anything that you want to bring up or ask, or ideas or things you'd just like a quick answer to it. So we'll have a sort of free-for-all at the end. And also sending you out a link to a feedback survey, if you wouldn't mind doing either tomorrow or today or tomorrow or whenever, just to give me some feedback. That would be very helpful, as this is a pilot. And I think that's it from me tonight. So, lovely to speak to you again, and thanks for joining in.
Thanks, Jo.
Thank you, Jo.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.